So I was up pulling some cards and I got the message that this spread was part of a collective message, but like a very small collective message. And I was like, I'm pretty sure only like three people watch these videos, if that. So maybe this is the small collective that we're referring to. Um, but anyways, this feels kind of like a love connection type reading. Um, and specifically, like the message that was coming through that I was trying to parse apart was something about like red flags and about for this collective, like someone finding your like red flags to be not just like not a deterrent, but like an actively positive thing. Like they don't even see them as red flags. And I was like, that's really interesting. So I wanna dig into like what red flags are we talking about? Like how are these framed positively, like seen differently? And I got some cards out and that was when it was like, well, actually this is a collective message. So I'll kind of get into what we have here and then, pull some more cards if we need further clarification. We started out with the Knight of Wands, Strength, Knight of Swords, then Eight of Wands, Nine of Wands, Two of Pentacles, and the Ten of Cups. And what this is telling me with these Knights and Strength up here is that it's like you have the capacity to be someone who takes action takes action on things in like a meaningful way. Um, but you also like have the capacity to not let that become impulsive. Like you are controlled in the action that you take. And with this Nine of Wands down here, I think that you may sometimes like see that as like you being like very reserved, you being guarded, like you holding back. Maybe I'm seeing like the image of like almost like a fortress, and you know how to move throughout this. You know how to like open the drawbridge, so to speak. But also it's like there's almost like a barrier to entry. And it's funny, we got like these Eight of Wands, right next to this Nine of Wands, where it like almost looks like this person in this is the Nine of Wands is just like sort of sitting here and looking a little bit like, oh shit, here we go again with this like Eight of Wands energy approaching. Um, you know, but like still holding fast. Still holding fast. And that like Nine of Wands came out under strength, which, again, it's this idea where I think that you see yourself as someone who puts a lot of work to hold back the floodgates sometimes, to keep yourself at arm's length from certain energies. But this person sees that as a strength. They see you as someone who is like controlled, who is, careful, who is powerful for that. I think that sometimes like you may see yourself as someone who is almost like imprisoned by your own boundaries or by your own caution in a sense, and like the effort that you go to like keep that balance, and to like maintain the way that you are and the way that you hold those boundaries. um but again, it's like this person instead they see it as this fortress, as this protective thing, as this beautiful internal architecture that you have built to preserve your energy, your sense of self, like the life that you want to live. But there is something here about you stepping into a place of like not being so afraid to open the drawbridge to certain things. Maybe some of this energy that's coming in and this connection that you're in. Because I think that like there is something here about you having the ability to do that when you so choose. With this Two of Pentacles next to the Ten of Cups, it's almost like a sense of discernment, a sense of like knowing what, like when this sort of like fast moving energy comes in, it's like being able to not just immediately be like moved by it and be like, okay, I'm gonna go after this, I'm gonna do this and this, but like, taking the time to kind of like hold back to fully analyze it, to see what's going on, and to like adapt your boundaries and how much of yourself you let people access accordingly. And this Ten of Cups here, it's almost like this sense of you're not going to let someone in unless it is exactly what you want, unless it is like the wish fulfillment kind of thing. Um, you have high standards. You have high standards, and it's not high standards in necessarily the way of like going around like criticizing people or trying to get people to change. It's like high standards in the sense of like you just won't entertain them or won't even like let them access the inner parts of you unless you have determined that they're bringing that 10 of cups energy. And I get the sense that like some people may not even know that you have those inner depths because you don't like advertise that. And I think that you see that as like a red flag. Like maybe you see yourself as like a little controlling or like paranoid. But this person's like, damn, like you value yourself. Like you know what you're worth, you know what you have, and you know who you should and shouldn't let into that. So I want some more information about like this person here. Um, Wheel of Fortune. Something about like the universe placing you two in each other's paths. And this feels like I'm hearing like one in a million, which that maybe that's why they're like this is for a very small collective. Small collective because this is a mathematically unlikely event. I don't know what that means, but there's something about like both of you in this instance, and something about like the way that you connect or the compatibility or the way that this came about being very unlikely. We also got the Four of Swords there, the King of Pentacles. So there's some like earth sign energy here, which could be like actually you or this person, but also, just like the energy of something that is like very grounded and sustainable. With the Four of Swords in the middle, I feel like this is kind of a connection that, may have come to you when you were not like looking for it or not like putting in a ton of effort to like put yourself out there or do anything. Like you're maybe even like recovering from other things or like other connections. And it's kind of like the universe just, put this King of Pentacles in your path. And I think it's almost like warranted that you would be a little bit suspicious. You're like, is this like a Trojan horse? I'm not gonna open the gates for a Trojan horse. Um, but no, it's just the King of Pentacles. There's also something here about like this being someone who is like very generous with you in certain regards, but like especially like physically, there's someone who maybe like either wants to like help you out with like physical tasks or someone who is maybe like more like financially well off and wants to help you out in that way. But it is like very much almost like this person knows what they have and knows like what I'm hearing like what you don't. And I think in some ways it's like they have what you don't and you have what they don't. Like very complimentary. That might be like some of like one in a million type energy. And I think that there is this sense about them like showing up that way regardless of the state that you're in. With that like Four of Swords, it's like even if you are kind of in this state of like resting, recovering, maybe not like actively hustling, in a sense, it's like they're not diminishing the way that they show up. I also got the Page of Swords here, and Judgment. I think that there's there's something here about like talking about doing things differently. Like this sense of maybe you've had like a conversation with this person about like wanting to, maybe this is like part of the rest and recovery, but maybe you've had like a conversation where you're talking about like reorienting your life differently or like realizing certain things about yourself with judgment and feeling like, okay, I need to structure my life to accommodate what I know to be true, to accommodate like what I've learned about myself through, like whatever process this is. And, with that Page of Swords, I feel like this person is like approaching you and all of this. I guess they could also be the one who's like talking about doing things differently, but there's this sense of like approaching with curiosity. Um, curiosity, and I think that, again with that Page of Swords, like there may be a lot of communication about that. I think that there also may be something about like you doing things differently than they are used to, or you being kind of a different person than they are used to interacting with, and like that being something that sparks a lot of like curiosity or interest or excitement in them that kind of gets their mind going, gets their brain and potentially their mouth running a little bit. But this does feel like someone where you can take like a small question and expand that out into like a bigger, like deeper conversation. Like you can jump from the Page of Swords energy to judgment to like having these big realizations. I think that there may also be something about like, this connection and conversations that you've had like catalyzing certain realizations, sort of like either triggering or confirming some like aha moments in terms of like what it is that you want to do and how. I was gonna say why, but they're like, no, it's how. So there's like a practical sense to this, which I think makes sense with that like King of Pentacles there, like the practicality. It's almost like taking what you know to be true, taking the dream that you've had and like making a game plan. This feels like someone who is like action oriented, like someone who sees what they want and goes for it. What else about how they see you? Okay, King of Swords. So like I like that because I described like you two as sort of like being on a similar level but in different ways, and this King of Pentacles feels like more connected to this other person's energy. But they're seeing you as the King of Swords. The Fool, Seven of Cups. So I think that they see you as very intelligent, very intelligent, like very well spoken. But like you also have this, it's not like innocence in a sense of like, oh, like you're so naive or you've never experienced this, but it's almost like the way that you have not let any of the things that you've been through keep you from approaching life and approaching new opportunities with an open mind. You have this sense of like being open to a lot of different options, and I think like having a lot of like imagination and like playfulness with that, with like the Fool and the Seven of Cups. And I think that there's also like this sense of like them seeing you as someone who's like very intelligent to the point that like you could make a lot of different things work, and I think that you, with the King of Swords and the Fool, it's kind of like you've picked a path and there's like a certain level of strategy behind it, and like someone might look at you and where you are in life and think like, oh, you're just sort of like whimsying along, dilly-dallying down the path of life. But there is like this sense of strategy behind it. There is like this sense of planning, of considering. And I think that like they see that, and like they see that you are someone like who knows how to look at all the options. Like you're someone who considers a lot of possibilities, and I think like that's part of the reason why they see you as like as intelligent as you are. Um, how do they feel? Nine of Pentacles, Seven of Wands, Five of Wands. Interesting. Interesting. I feel like there's like a little bit of internal tension for this person. I think maybe about this feeling of struggling sometimes to maintain like their level of independence, or like feeling protective of that, or feeling like they don't want to destabilize that in themselves or in you. You know, it's like they want to be a part of your life, but they don't want that to be at the expense of your independence. Or like I'm also hearing it's like they want to support you, but they don't want to take credit for what you do. Like they feel like they feel like protective. I think they feel protective of you, and like your independence, and like your accomplishments, and like very specifically like you being able to like take credit for that, and you being able to own that, and you being able to like profit off of that. um like they feel a little bit protective. Like I'm seeing this as, you know, this Nine of Pentacles being primarily like you here, and like this other person, you know, with the Seven of Wands sort of standing in between you and this other like conflict, this tension, potentially jealous energy. It's like they want to be the one that's like standing in between you, so you can just be like chilling here in your happy little garden doing your thing. um there's a protectiveness, but I get the sense that that might be like a little bit like understated, a little bit understated. High Priestess. It's almost like they don't have to say it. They don't have to say it, but you feel it. Two of Wands. I think that you can tell that they feel a little protective, because if you look at the way that they, you know, sort of like adjust their plans or maybe talk about the future, there's always this sense of like wanting to orient that in a way that offers you freedom, that offers you autonomy, that, you know, it's almost like their version of protectiveness wouldn't be going and like hitting someone else over the head with a stick, but rather like building you up, and like building up like the structures and stability that surround you, so that like you can shine there. And so there's like this sense of, you know, they may not come off as like the most like aggressive protector, but it's like they protect you through nurturing you, through creating stability for you. But like the underlying intention there, the underlying like feeling is, it is like very protective, and even like borderline possessive, not in like a I own you, but in a like you own you, and I'm going to defend what you own because I care about you. And you know, there's like by extension, I'm protective over that. What else? What else about this connection? Ten of Wands, Five of Swords. King of Cups, the Magician. You're not wrong to be a little bit exhausted at this point. You're also not wrong to be a little bit slow to, let down your guard. I think that in some ways you're still carrying the weight of betrayal, of things that were both taken from you wrongly and also put on you wrongly. Um, with this like King of Cups here, I think that there's this sense of maybe not hiding that behind any kind of like facade, but I think maintaining a lot of stability in the face of that, uh, doing a lot to turn that into a positive thing. I do get the sense that this person like sees that and they see like the burden that you carry from these painful situations, and there is this desire to support you. There is this desire to empower you. And I think with the Magician here, there's also something about like this coming in the way that it is because you asked for it. That feels like very significant, that for whoever this is for, it's like regardless of whether or not you trust it when it comes in, you have been asking for support. You have been asking for compassion. You have been asking for balance, because in some ways you're still carrying this, even if like you're not actively in a situation that's like abusive, that's toxic. It's like the fact that you have to maintain your life, your boundaries, your everything the way that you do. It's like that is evidence of like the energetic weight of the things that did happen to you. And this feels like someone who gets that. This feels like someone who's not going to push you. This feels like someone that you asked for. Get a few more cards. I feel like there's a little bit more to this. The Moon, Death, Queen of Pentacles. Things are going to look and feel clearer soon. If this is your message, I think that you have been in this sort of period of this moon energy with like a lot of the almost like your brain running every worst case scenario before consider opening the gate. And with death there, it's kind of like that energy once you run through every possible worst case scenario, like that energy is gonna shift. It's like I'm seeing hearing like that like click, and you put the right key in the lock and you turn it and there's like a click and it opens the door. And on the other side there's that Queen of Pentacles energy. There's that energy that, for me, like the Queen of Pentacles, whenever I see her, like I think of like home. There's like a very nurturing and like very warm, inviting energy there. And I think that like you may have felt some of your anxieties come up before and maybe wondered, it's like, is that reflective of this person or this situation that I am? Where is this coming from? Um, but it feels like that energy, if this is your reading, like that energy is shifting, and you're gonna feel the shift. You're gonna feel, the lock turn in the key, and I think that you're gonna like what's on the other side. I think that that's gonna feel like home. I'm just hearing like feel like home, and feel like a home that is made for you, and a home that welcomes you, and a home that nurtures you. Um, so yeah, feels like home. And in that home. You know, it's like the way that you are and the way that you approach things is not a negative, it's not a bad thing, it's an adaptation worthy of respect and consideration and care, you know? But all it's like there's no one here is going to judge you for keeping your guard up as long as you need to, but also there's going to be a place where it's safe for you to let it down. So hopefully that's helpful, and yeah, good luck with this.